Hi there, it's Michael V with episode number 5 of the 1951 Mercury lead sled project. You know, when I bought this car, I didn't realize how much it had been chopped. It was actually over chopped. This created a big problem, especially in an accident where the doors might jam. There's just no way to escape the side windows. You couldn't get out of the car. It would turn it into a trap. So we decided to turn this thing into both a convertible and make it safe at the same time, creating what's called a Liftoff Carson top, which is traditional from the 50s. It'll enhance the car in a big way, and I'm going to show you the steps we took to do this. First, you have to brace the inside of the body. In this picture, you can see the square tube and such to brace it up, otherwise it'll bend and then you'll have a real problem. Next, you grab some neighbors after you take the Sawzall to the windshield in the back, and you get your neighbors over to your house and have them lift off the top that was on the car originally. Here my buddies are doing that to help us. Next, I got Craig Gilliam involved again. The guy's a master, and we decided to create, again, a Carson top that's going to be a lift-off top, and in the event of an accident, we'll be able to push the top off if we have to escape. Here you see what's left of the rear body, and now the real sheet metal work's going to start. Tons and tons of welding and fabricating here went on. This was a 6-month project to do this the right way, and everything worked out in the end just right. I'm going to show you how we braced the body here and how we started to fill in the back, the package tray, and the sides of the body. Here you see how we braced the body, which is very, very important to do. If you don't, it'll twist up and turn into a big mess. What we ended up doing was we made sheet metal pieces that would wrap around the package tray on the outside of the car, tack welded it all in, which you can see, and then finished welded it, skip welding little by little all the way around the side of the car. That took a long time, lots of sanding and lots of grinding. Next was a way to figure out how to latch the top of the new Carson top onto the windshield. I went to pick your part, and I found this old vet that was sitting in the wrecking yard, and I was able to take the bracketry and stuff off that, and then Craig and I were able to put it into the windshield frame. As you can start to see here, this is where the fill of the fabrication starts, and then also on how to place the Corvette handles in place. You'll see the pockets here on the right side here, and that'll allow us to unscrew or unlatch the top when necessary. Here you can see the receptacle that I got out of the Corvette and how we put it into the windshield frame and engineered it in there so when the top is on, this is what's going to hold it down. This handle right here is going to be part of the top, and that's what screws into the actual windshield frame to hold the top in place. I figured if it worked for a Corvette, it's probably going to work for me. Here Craig is starting to make the window frames for the side of the roof. Our next step was to form the skeleton of the roof. We did this out of 1/2-inch round tubing and rolled it so it would match what we needed as far as the body lines go. Very important to make sure that the line will go right into the trunk and fast back right down with no transition. That was the goal of this. Clean it up and make it look really nice. You'll start to see how the skeleton comes together and then how we cross-braced it with 90-degree bent sheet metal pieces to tie everything together here. Once that was done, we needed to figure out a rear window, so I used a 48 Ford rear window design. I like that design. It just kind of fits the car the right way, and we made that out of wood so we can take care of it as far as making the frame and everything goes. You're going to see the frame here that we made out of sheet metal. Same thing, that was all bent in place. From here, you'll see the skeleton of the roof all complete. There was a ton of welding and a ton of fabricating just to get to this point also. The next step was to cover it, and I decided to use thin perforated sheet, which has tiny holes in it, just to give it some substance there. And then the front of it, we were going to make a bulkhead out of sheet metal, just to protect us a little bit better. So you'll sort of see how that comes into play right now. Once we got all the perforated sheet metal welded and sanded down and looking clean, we had time to finish up the back window frame and just finish up all the small details. So I worked on that for a little while, and then the next step you'll see is the sheet metal bulkhead in the front of the top, which would help just in case rocks or something comes up and hits. I ended up trying to make this thing a lot stronger than it needed to be, but there's no reason not to. It'll be strong and super easy to take on and off when we want to drive it without the top on, or if we get in an accident for safety purposes. Here's an inside view of kind of what it looks like. These are the rear hold down clamps, which I used off of a Jeep hood. They're spring loaded and they're going to work well. From that point, we got everything kind of finished welded and so on, and we started to look at the windshield and it just didn't look right. So it's time to cut the windshield opening too. Some more spooky cutting, more body work here, but it's going to turn out looking really nice and looking proportional like it's supposed to. You can see the layout of the Sharpie marker here, and then we're going to start cutting away the sheet metal, and that's where it gets real spooky. But like Craig always tells me, you can always add sheet metal back in. It's not a big deal. So now I've got a big hole in the front of the windshield frame here, and we're going to go ahead and fill that all in with sheet metal, slowly weld it in, slowly sand it all down so we don't get too much warpage, and it'll end up looking great at the end. Here's a few more pics of what I did to the windshield frame, cutting everything out and getting it ready to go. Then Craig and I went at it with the sheet metal skills here and started to fill it all in, and you'll see that next. Once it's all tacked in place, really makes a huge difference. Everything looks a lot better, looks more proportional, looks like it's supposed to look with the top. And you'll see most of the finished work here coming up here soon. There was still a little bit more after that, but for the most part you'll get the idea of what we were trying to accomplish to sort of wake it up a little bit and make it look like it was supposed to look. I didn't want it to look like it was something that was an afterthought. So it looks like the windshield opening now is supposed to look like it's supposed to look. From that point, we needed to do something more on the top. So I called in a crew of guys that do fiberglass, and these guys came over and they fiberglassed over the perforated sheet metal to give this top much more strength, much more stability, and better weatherproofing all the way around. This was a full weekend project, and it worked out wonderfully. You'll see here in pictures here in just a few minutes. While the top was curing, I turned Craig Gilliam loose on the car again with his lead slinger skill sets. Here he is doing some body work on the passenger door, which was a mess, and he ended up filling all that in with lead. That's why they call these lead sleds, by the way. Right above him, you're going to see the Frenched antenna, which we added some detail to here. We turned that into a nice teardrop, which matches the rest of the car and gives that Frenched antenna a nice little detail. Once Craig completed all of the lead work, it was time to put a skim coat of body filler on it to try and get the car as flat as possible. Here you see the skirts installed, just so we could sort of get an idea what it looks like with the top off also and the skirts on. I love the way it looked in this picture, and the next one really got our attention. We put the top back on the car, we put the skirt back on after it was body worked a little bit, and now you can really start to see of the shape what it's going to end up looking like here. Next, I took it outside and put it in the sun. Craig and I decided to take the car outside so we could stand back and sort of look at how everything's coming along so far. Craig's a great body man in his own right, and he does awesome paint work, but he's also got lots of projects going on and he's pretty busy. So here's a side view of what we were able to accomplish. We got it as flat and square as we could. You'll see the roof just disappears into the trunk. That's what it's supposed to do. And the next stop was going to be a body shop that we found that is going to do some awesome body work for us and do the final paint. It's Canoga Auto Works out in Canoga Park, California. Khalil and his crew out there had my car for about 4 to 5 months, but what they did was astonishing when it was all complete. Even Craig was impressed with it. So you'll see that next, and here's a few more pictures of the roughed in work of what we did and how we made it to where it's going to be easier for the guys at the body shop. Last, here's the roof on the trailer upside down, all finished for the most part, ready for upholstery. And then I just sanded down all the fiberglass, got it as flat as I could, and just did a light white coat of paint on it before it goes to upholstery and gets the padding done. That will be in an episode here next time. Thank you for watching. See you next time.